He thought it was just another quiet afternoon, nothing more than passing time. A retired Navy SEAL living alone in the Montana wilderness. Same routine, same silence, same way he kept the world at a distance. Then something moved near the edge of the trees, low, careful, not quite wild, not quite tame. At first he thought it was a raccoon, but it wasn't. It stepped forward, too deliberate, too focused. A puppy, German Shepherd, maybe 10 months old, black and tan coat matted with dirt, ribs showing through the fur. But the eyes were different, alert, intelligent, like it was on a mission. It walked straight up to his porch, dropped something at the bottom step, then backed away like it had just completed a task. He looked down, a piece of wood, pale, fresh cut, still carrying the faint scent of pine. For a moment, he just stood there, one hand resting against the doorframe, the November cold biting at his face. And for reasons he couldn't name, he didn't step away. Before we begin, share the city you're watching from. We want to see how far this story travels. And if this kind of story speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe and be part of the journey. Now let's get into it. Late afternoon, November 2024. The Montana wilderness held onto a stubborn cold, the kind that settled into your bones and didn't leave. Snow hadn't come yet, but you could feel it waiting, the air sharp enough to cut. The cabin sat quiet among tall pines, small, weathered, the kind of place people went to disappear. Ethan Cross was 37 that autumn. He had spent 12 years as a Navy SEAL, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 catastrophic loss that ended everything. Now he was 4 months out, long enough to be home, not long enough to know what home meant anymore. He moved through the cabin like someone borrowing it, not touching more than he needed, not settling into anything that might ask him to stay. The place belonged to his uncle, a former forest ranger named Thomas, who had passed 3 months earlier. Heart attack, quick, clean, the way Thomas would have wanted it. Thomas had left the cabin to Ethan in his will, along with a handwritten note that said only this: "You'll know when you're ready to stop running." Ethan hadn't known what that meant. Still didn't. His days were simple: kitchen, back porch, couch, then back again. No schedule, no orders, no one expecting him anywhere. The refrigerator held eggs and coffee. The cabinet held canned soup. The closet held 3 shirts and 2 pairs of jeans. Everything he owned fit in a single duffel bag. He wasn't planning to stay long. There was a daughter, Maya, 8 years old, living in Portland with her mother, Rachel, his ex-wife. They had divorced 2 years ago, right after he came back from his last deployment, right after he stopped being able to sleep through the night without seeing Kabul burning behind his eyes. Rachel had tried. God knows she had tried. But you can't love someone who won't let you in. And Ethan had locked every door he had. He was supposed to drive to Portland next week. Court-mandated visitation, first time in 6 months. Rachel had made it clear he got one chance, one weekend. Then she would decide if Maya needed a father who was present or a father who was absent. He understood, didn't blame her, didn't blame anyone but himself. That afternoon, he sat on the back porch longer than usual. Coffee growing cold in a chipped mug, the forest stretching out in front of him like an empty page. Somewhere in the distance, a branch snapped. Wind moved through the trees, and then he saw it. Movement near the tree line, low to the ground, careful. At first, he thought raccoon, the way it kept close to the shadows, pausing between steps like it was measuring distance. But it wasn't. Smaller, leaner. It stepped into the clearing just enough for the fading light to catch it. A dog. Young, German Shepherd. Black and tan, too thin, fur matted in places, but moving with purpose. It didn't bark, didn't whine, just watched. There was something in its mouth. The dog walked toward the porch, slow, steady, like it had done this before. It reached the bottom step, set down what it was carrying. then backed away. Quick, precise. Ethan leaned forward. A piece of wood, small, light, one end smooth where something had chewed it clean. The dog stood 10 feet back, eyes locked on him, waiting. Ethan blinked, and then he did something he hadn't done in months. He laughed. Not a polite laugh, not because, oh, it was particularly funny, a real laugh. The kind that catches you off guard because you forgot your chest could make that sound. It slipped out before he could stop it. The dog's ears twitched, body lowering slightly, still watching. Ethan reached down, picked up the piece of wood. It was light, smooth on one end, still smelled like sap. He looked up. The dog was already gone, vanished back into the trees so cleanly it felt like it had never been there. Ethan stayed where he was, the wood still in his hand. It wasn't anything, just a scrap, but he didn't throw it away. He stood, walked inside, set it on the kitchen table next to the phone he never used and the mail he hadn't opened. It landed with a soft sound. He stared at it for longer than made sense. Then he moved through the rest of the evening the same way he had every evening before. Made soup, ate half, poured the rest down the sink, sat on the couch, let time pass. But every so often his eyes drifted toward the door, like he was checking for something or someone. Night came quietly. The forest turned into shapes and shadows beyond the glass. Ethan stood by the window for a moment, hand resting against the cold pane. He didn't know why. Then he shut off the light, lay down on the couch, hands folded over his chest, the same position he had fallen asleep in too many times to count. He closed his eyes. And for a second, standing there earlier on that porch, something had shifted. Not enough to name, not enough to trust, but enough to notice. Tomorrow, will it come back? He didn't answer the thought, but the next morning he woke up earlier than he had in weeks. The dog came back the following afternoon. Same time, same direction through the trees. This time it carried a bottle cap, green, plastic, worn but intact. It walked up to the step, set it down next to where the piece of wood had been, then backed away, watching. Ethan stood in the doorway, arms crossed, not moving. The dog waited. Finally, Ethan turned, went inside, opened a cabinet, found a can of chicken, plain, no seasoning. He dumped it into a bowl, added water, brought it back outside, set it down a few feet from the step, then stepped back. The dog didn't rush. It stayed where it was, making sure he wasn't going to move again. Then it came forward. It ate quickly, not messy, not careless, but with focus, like it had learned not to waste time on things that might disappear. Ethan didn't crouch, didn't reach out, just stood there, hands loose at his sides. When the dog finished, it looked up at him, ears forward, eyes clear. Then it turned and walked back into the trees. That night, the phone number his uncle had left on the counter felt less like something optional. Ethan picked up the phone, stared at it, then dialed. It rang 3 times, yeah. A woman's voice, young, professional, a little cautious. "This is Ethan Cross. My uncle was Thomas Cross, forest ranger. He left me your number." Pause. "Sarah Mitchell. I worked with Thomas on wildlife conservation. I'm sorry for your loss. He was a good man." "Yeah." Another pause. "What can I do for you?" Ethan looked toward the back door. The bottle cap and the piece of wood is sitting on the table now. "There's a dumb, young, German shepherd. Been coming by, bringing things." Silence on the other end, then a shift in her tone. "How young? 10 months maybe. Thin, but not wild. Acts like it's on a mission." More silence. "Where are you?" Ethan gave her the address. "I'll be there tomorrow morning." She hung up. The days after that didn't turn into a routine right away, but they started to lean in that direction. The dog came every afternoon, always the same time, always from the same direction. Day 3, a thin square of metal, worn smooth along the edges. Day 4, a length of pale cord, twisted at one end. Day 5. A small gray stone, perfectly round. It never stayed long, only long enough to place the object. Step back, watch. Ethan kept them. He didn't know why. They sat on the kitchen table in a loose line. No order, no meaning he could see, but he didn't throw them away. Sarah Mitchell arrived the next morning just after dawn. Late 20s, auburn hair pulled into a loose braid. Wearing a conservation officer jacket and boots that had seen serious miles. She didn't knock, just called out from the driveway. Ethan Cross. He stepped onto the porch. She walked up, offered her hand. Firm grip, direct eye contact. Sarah Mitchell, thanks for coming. She glanced past him toward the tree line, then back at him. Show me what it brought. He led her inside, gestured to the table. She stopped, stared at the objects for a long moment. Her expression changed. Something shifted behind her eyes. You said German Shepherd. Yeah. She reached out, picked up the piece of wood, turned it over. This is fresh cut, within the last week. Ethan nodded. She set it down. Picked up the cord. This looks military grade. Paracord. She looked up at him. Where exactly does it come from? Always the same direction. Northeast, through the pines. She walked to the window, looked out. That's toward Old Timber Mill. What's that? She turned back. Her face was harder now. Sawmill. Shut down about 15 years ago. Been empty ever since. Supposed to be condemned. Supposed to be. She hesitated. People have seen lights there. At night, last few months. Ethan waited. Your uncle and I were looking into it before he passed. He thought someone was using it for something. Didn't know what. Did you find out? She shook her head. Thomas died before we could investigate further. I've been too busy with other cases to follow up. She looked back at the table. I've seen that dog before. Or one that looks like it. There was a German Shepherd female near the mill about 2 years ago. She disappeared. We assumed she died or moved on. You think this is hers? Could be. German Shepherds are loyal, even wild ones. If she had a litter and something happened to her, the pups might stay close to the area. Ethan looked at the objects again. Why bring me things? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Some dogs are trained to retrieve. Military dogs, police dogs. If this one has that kind of lineage, it might be trying to communicate, showing you it can perform tasks, trying to earn trust. She met his eyes, or asking for help. That afternoon, the dog came again. This time, Sarah was there. It stopped at the edge of the clearing when it saw her. Hesitated. It was carrying something in its mouth. Larger than before. Sarah stayed perfectly still. Didn't move. Didn't speak. The dog watched her, then looked at Ethan. Ethan took one step forward, crouched down, made himself smaller. It's okay. The dog lowered its head, set down what it was carrying, then backed away, but not as far as before. Ethan walked over, picked it up. His hand froze. Sarah saw his face change. What is it? He turned it over, wiped the dirt away. A dog tag. Military. Old. Corroded along the edges, but the stamping was still visible. Sarah stepped closer. Ethan read it out loud. Lieutenant Marcus Vale, K-9 Handler, U.S. Army, 2022. His voice went flat. Sarah's eyes widened. You know him. Ethan didn't answer right away. He was staring at the tag like it was something impossible. Finally, he spoke. Quiet. He was my mentor. Trained me when I first joined. Best handler I ever saw. Pause. He went missing 2 years ago, November 2023. They said he deserted, went a WOL during leave. She watched him carefully. You believe that? Ethan looked up. His jaw was tight. No, he stood, turned the tag over in his hand. Marcus sent me an email the week before he disappeared, said he was home in Montana, said he found something, didn't say what, just said he needed to be sure before he reported it. He looked toward the trees. That was the last I heard from him. Sarah's voice was softer now. Where was home? Ethan met her eyes. Here, just outside Timber Ridge, about 10 miles from this cabin. The silence between them was heavy. Finally, Sarah spoke. We need to go to that mill. Ethan looked at the D. It was still watching, ears forward, eyes locked on the tag in his hand, like it knew exactly what it had brought him. Yeah, we do. That evening, Ethan called Rachel. She answered on the third ring. What? Her voice was tired, guarded. It's me. I know who it is, Ethan. What do you want? I need to push the visit back. Just a few days. Silence. Then her voice came back. Colder. No. Rachel, listen. I don't want to listen. You've canceled twice already. Maya asks about you every week, and I run out of excuses. I'm not canceling. I'm asking for 3 days. Why? He hesitated. Something came up. Something always comes up with you, Ethan. That's the problem. This is different. Her laugh was bitter. It's never different. You're always chasing something or running from something. And Maya is always the one waiting. He closed his eyes. I know. Then stop knowing and start showing up. I will. I promise. Just give me until Monday. She didn't answer right away. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, but not softer. This is your last chance. You understand that? I understand. Monday. If you're not here Monday morning, don't bother coming at all. She hung up. Ethan stood there, phone still in his hand, chest tight. Behind him, Sarah was looking out the window. She didn't ask, didn't need to. After a moment, she spoke. We leave at first light. He nodded. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat on the porch in the cold, the dog tag in his hand, Marcus Vale. He could still see his face, 42, stocky, scarred hands. The kind of man who spoke in short sentences and expected you to keep up. Marcus had pulled Ethan aside during his second week of canine training, told him something he never forgot. A dog doesn't care how tough you are. It cares how steady you are. You want to earn trust, you show up every day, same time, same energy, no excuses. Ethan had carried that with him through every deployment, every mission, until the one in Kabul, the one where his K9 partner, a German shepherd named Ranger, stepped on an IED meant for him. Ethan had held him while he died, felt the weight go out of his body, watched the light leave his eyes. 3 days later, Ethan put in for discharge. He hadn't touched a dog since. Now he was sitting here holding a dog tag that shouldn't exist, brought to him by a dog that shouldn't know who he was. The stars were sharp overhead, the cold pressing in from all sides. Somewhere in the dark, the dog was out there, watching, waiting. Ethan closed his fist around the tag. Marcus, what did you find? The morning came fast, gray light pushing through the pines. Sarah pulled up in a white truck marked with the Conservation Service logo. Ethan was already on the porch. He climbed in. She didn't say anything, just handed him a thermos of coffee and started driving. The road to the mill was narrow, barely maintained. Branches scraped the sides of the truck. After 20 minutes, she slowed, pulled off onto a dirt path that looked like it hadn't been used in years. We walked from here. They got out. The air was colder here, damp, the trees thicker. Sarah moved quietly, efficient, like she had done this before. Ethan followed. After 10 minutes, they saw it. Old timber mill, 2 stories, sagging roof, broken windows, the wood blackened in places from age and rot. But there were tire tracks in the dirt, fresh. Within the last few days, Sarah crouched, ran her fingers over them. Heavy vehicle, truck maybe. She looked up at the building. Someone's been here. They approached slowly. Ethan's instincts kicked in, eyes scanning, counting exits, listening. The front door hung open, rusted hinges. Sarah reached for it. Wait. Ethan stepped in front of her, pushed the door wider with his boot. It creaked, the sound echoing through the empty space inside. Nothing moved. He stepped in first. Sarah followed. The interior was gutted. Old equipment rusted in corners. Broken glass scattered across the floor. The smell of mold and decay thick in the air. But there was something else. Recent activity, boot prints in the dust, a stack of wooden pallets that looked new, and in the corner, a metal door, padlocked. Sarah pointed. That wasn't here before. Ethan walked over, examined the lock, new, heavy duty. He looked around, found a rusted metal bar leaning against the wall, stepped back, swung hard. The lock shattered on the second hit. The door opened, stairs leading down into darkness. Sarah pulled a flashlight from her belt, clicked it on. The beam cut through the black. They descended. The basement was smaller than Ethan expected. Concrete floor, low ceiling, damp. But it wasn't empty. In the center of the room, a metal filing cabinet, new, on the floor beside it. A canvas bag, military issue. Ethan's breath caught. He knew that bag. He walked over, crouched down, unzipped it. Inside, personal effects, a wallet, dog-eared notebook, and a phone, dead. He opened the wallet. Marcus Vale's driver's license stared back at him. Sarah's voice was quiet. Ethan. He looked up. She was standing in the corner. Flashlight pointed at the wall. There was writing, scratched into the concrete with something sharp. If you find this, Graves knows, protect the dogs. And below it, a date, November 18th, 2023. Ethan stood, walked over. His voice was hoarse. That's 2 days before he disappeared. Sarah didn't respond. She was staring at something else. A dark stain on the floor. Old, but unmistakable. Blood. Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. They killed him. Sarah turned. Who's Graves? Ethan's jaw tightened. Sheriff William Graves. He runs this county. Before Sarah could respond, they heard it. Above them, the unmistakable sound of an engine. Close. Footsteps on the floor overhead. Heavy. Multiple people. A voice called out. Deep. Authoritative. Check the basement. Ethan and Sarah locked eyes. She whispered, Backstairs. They moved fast, silent. Ethan grabbed Marcus's bag. Sarah led the way to a second staircase in the corner. Older. Narrow. They climbed, pushed through a door that opened into the woods behind the mill. Behind them, they heard shouts. They ran. Ethan thought he was rescuing a litter of abandoned puppies. But when Sheriff Graves showed up with a gun and a threat, he realized he had just stumbled into something far more dangerous. Something his mentor died trying to expose. The truck tore down the dirt path, branches whipping against the windows. Sarah's knuckles white on the steering wheel. Behind them, the mill disappeared into the trees. Finally, she broke the silence. They knew we were there. Ethan stared out the window, his mind working through scenarios, calculating. Someone tipped them off. Or they've been watching the place. She glanced at him. What do we do? He didn't answer right away. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Unknown number. He answered. Yeah. A voice he didn't recognize. Male. Older. Calm. Mr. Cross, this is Sheriff William Graves. Ethan's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Graves continued. I understand you were at the old mill this morning. That property is private, owned by Apex Development Corporation. You were trespassing. Ethan kept his voice flat. I was looking for answers. Answers to what? Why my friend disappeared 2 years ago. Pause. When Graves spoke again, his tone had changed, colder. Marcus Vale deserted his post. That's a matter of military record. Not my jurisdiction. He didn't desert. The Army seems to think otherwise. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. I found his belongings in that basement. And a message. He knew something. Another pause. Longer this time. Mr. Cross, you're new to this area, so let me give you some friendly advice. Montana is a big place. Easy to get lost. Easy to have accidents. especially for people who go looking where they shouldn't. Is that a threat? Graves's voice stayed pleasant. Just concern for your safety. This county has enough problems without outsiders stirring things up. Ethan's voice dropped. I'm not going anywhere. Silence. Then Graves spoke one more time. The pleasantness gone. You should think about your daughter. Maya, 8 years old, lives in Portland with her mother, Rachel. Ethan went cold. Don't. Just making an observation. Children need their fathers. Would be a shame if something happened to keep you from seeing her. The line went dead. Ethan lowered the phone. His hand was shaking. Sarah was watching him. What did he say? Ethan stared straight ahead. He knows about Maya. Her face went pale. He's trying to scare you. It's working. They drove in silence for another 10 minutes. Finally, Sarah pulled off onto a side road, stopped the truck. She turned to face him. There's something you need to know. He waited. She took a breath. 15 years ago, my father was a deputy in this county, John Mitchell. He worked under Graves. Ethan listened. One night he came home late, told my mother he'd found something, wouldn't say what, said he needed to verify it before he went to the state police. Her voice tightened. 3 days later, his patrol car went off a bridge. They said he fell asleep at the wheel. Single car accident. No witnesses. She looked down at her hands. I was 13. I didn't understand then. But I kept his notebook. The one he carried everywhere. What was in it? Notes, observations. Most of it was routine. But there were entries from his last week. Mentions of the mill, late-night activity, vehicles with out-of-state plates. He wrote down license numbers, dates, Temis. Did you follow up? She shook her head. I was a kid. No one would listen to me. And my mother. She just wanted to move on. Forget. Pause. But I never forgot. That's why I became a conservation officer. Why I stayed in this county. I've been watching Graves for years, waiting for proof. Ethan studied her face. You think he killed your father? Her eyes met his. I know he did. The weight of that hung between them. Finally, Ethan spoke. Then we finished what they started. Sarah nodded. But we do it smart. Graves has the whole sheriff's department. We go at him directly, we're dead. What do you suggest? She thought for a moment. We need to know what Marcus found, what he was trying to expose. Ethan reached into the back seat, pulled Marcus's bag forward. Then let's see what he left us. They drove to Sarah's place, a small house on the edge of town, isolated, surrounded by trees. Inside, she cleared the kitchen table. Ethan emptied the bag, wallet, notebook, dead phone, a small metal box, locked. Sarah picked up the notebook, opened it carefully. Marcus's handwriting, dense, precise. She read aloud. October 2023, returned home on leave. Stella pregnant, due in 6 weeks. She looked up. Stella, his K9, German Shepherd, retired with him when he left active duty. Sarah continued reading. Noticed unusual activity near mill, vehicles arriving at night, no business operating there. Decided to investigate. She flipped pages. November 2nd. Confirmed. Mill being used as storage facility. Observed armed men. Counted 6. Recognized 1. Sheriff William Graves. Ethan leaned forward. November 8th. Accessed building during day. Discovered weapons cache in basement. Military grade. Crates marked for overseas shipment. This is illegal arms trafficking. Sarah's voice dropped. November 12th, contacted FBI field office in Helena. Spoke with Agent Carson. Sending evidence. Told to sit tight. She turned the page. Her hand stopped. November 15th, Graves came to my property, asked questions, knows I'm watching, need to move Stella somewhere safe. If anything happens to me, her puppies are the last good thing I'll leave behind. The last entry was November 18th, 2 days before Marcus disappeared. They're coming. I can hear trucks. Stella is hidden. I'm leaving this journal in the cabin basement. If someone finds it, know this. Graves is moving weapons to militia groups. Federal offense. The evidence is in the metal filing cabinet, second drawer, combination 172309. My daughter's birthday. Sarah looked up. He had a daughter. Ethan's face was stone. Allison. She was 6 when Marcus joined my unit. He carried her picture everywhere. Where is she now? With her mother, remarried, lives in Seattle. Marcus saw her twice a year. Sarah closed the notebook carefully. So Marcus found the weapons cache, reported it to the FBI, and Graves killed him before the investigation could move forward. Ethan picked up the locked metal box, shook it gently. Something inside. We need to open this. Sarah stood, went to a drawer, came back with a small toolkit. 2 minutes later, the lock gave way. Inside, a key, brass, small, and a folded piece of paper. Ethan unfolded it, a hand-drawn map showing the mill layout, an X marked in the basement and written in Marcus's handwriting. Safety deposit box, First National Bank, Timber Ridge, box 447. This key, evidence inside. Sarah and Ethan looked at each other. He kept back up. Smart man. What's in the box? Only one way to find out. His phone rang. Rachel? He almost didn't answer. Yeah, her voice was tight, scared. Where are you? Montana. Why? Maya kept asking about you. I told her you were busy. She didn't believe me. She said you sounded different on the phone yesterday. Said you sounded scared. I'm fine. No, you're not. Ethan, what's going on? He looked at Sarah. At Marcus's bag on the table, it's complicated. Rachel's voice cracked. She had a nightmare last night. Dreamed you were in trouble. Woke up crying. I couldn't calm her down. His chest tightened. Put her on. Rustling. Then Maya's small voice. Daddy. Hey, sweetheart. Are you okay? I'm okay, baby. I promise. You don't sound okay. He closed his eyes. I'm working on something. Something important. But I'll be there Monday. Just like I said. Silence. Then, I don't want you to die like the man on TV. What man? The soldier. The news said he died trying to help people. His throat closed. I'm not going to die. Promise. I promise. More silence. Then Rachel's voice again. Ethan, if you're in danger, I'm not. Liar. She hung up. Sarah watched him. You okay? No, he set the phone down. But they had work to do. The bank closed at 5. They had 40 minutes. The drive into Timber Ridge took 15 minutes. Small town, Main Street, 2 stoplights, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The bank sat on the corner, red brick, American flag out front. They parked, walked in. The interior was quiet. One teller, an older woman with glasses, a manager in a small office to the side. Sarah approached the counter. We need to access a safety deposit box. The teller smiled politely. Name. Sarah hesitated. Ethan stepped forward. Marcus Vale. The teller's smile faded slightly. I'll need identification. Ethan pulled out Marcus's driver's license from the wallet. The teller looked at it, then at Ethan. This isn't you. No, Marcus Vale was my friend. He's deceased. I'm his executor. Do you have documentation? Ethan's voice stayed calm. Not with me, but I have the key, and I know the box number. The teller glanced toward the manager's office. Sir, you'll need to speak with Mr. Hoffman. They waited while she made a call. 2 minutes later, a man in his 50s emerged. Thin, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses. Can I help you? Ethan explained again. Showed the license, the key. Hoffman studied them both, his expression unreadable. Marcus Vale. I remember him. Good man. Came in about 2 years ago. Set up that box. Pause. I heard he went missing? He did. Hoffman looked at the key in Ethan's hand. Without proper documentation, I can't authorize access. Ethan met his eyes. Marcus was murdered. The evidence in that box might prove it. Hoffman's face didn't change. But something shifted in his eyes. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Hoffman glanced at the teller, then back at Ethan. Give me a moment. He disappeared into his office, closed the door. Sarah whispered, he's calling someone. Ethan nodded. 3 minutes passed. Hoffman emerged. His face was pale. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Why not? He didn't answer, just turned and walked back to his office. The teller avoided their eyes. Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked down. Text message. Unknown number. Leave the bank now. He showed it to Sarah. She read it. Her face hardened. Graves, they walked out. Got in the truck. Sarah started the engine. Now what? Ethan stared at the bank. We come back tonight. You're talking about breaking in. You have a better idea. She didn't. They drove back to Sarah's house. Waited for dark. Ethan used the time to go through Marcus's notebook again, reading every entry, looking for anything they missed. Sarah made coffee, sat across from him. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Why did you leave the SEALs? He didn't look up. I lost my partner. She waited. Finally, he continued. Kabul, August 2022. We were clearing a building. Ranger, my K9. He was 3 steps ahead of me. Pause. There was an IED, pressure plate. He stepped on it before I could stop him. Ethan's voice went flat. I carried him out. He died in my arms. Sarah's voice was soft. I'm sorry. Ethan closed the notebook. I couldn't do it anymore. Every mission after that, all I saw was him. All I felt was that weight. He looked up, so I left, came home, and realized I didn't know how to be home. She nodded slowly. That why you're out here, in the middle of nowhere, part of it. What's the other part? He was quiet for a long time. I have a daughter, Maya. I haven't seen her in 6 months. Why not? Because I don't know how to be her father. I don't know how to be anyone's anything. You're helping me. You're here trying to find out what happened to your friend. That's different. How? He met her eyes. This I understand. This is a mission. Clear objective. Clear enemy. He gestured vaguely. But being a dad, being present, that's harder than anything I did overseas. Sarah was quiet, then she spoke. My father used to say the hardest missions are the ones where you can't see the enemy, because the enemy is usually yourself. Ethan didn't respond. They sat in silence until the sun went down. At midnight, they drove back to town, parked 2 blocks from the bank, walked the rest of the way. The streets were empty. 1 patrol car passed. They ducked into an alley until it was gone. The bank had an alarm system. But Sarah had worked security during college. She knew the basics. She examined the back door. Old lock. No camera. She pulled out a tension wrench and pick from her jacket. 2 minutes later, the lock clicked. They slipped inside. The vault was in the back. Another locked door. This one newer. Electronic keypad. Ethan examined it. Can you bypass it? Sarah shook her head. Not without triggering the alarm. He thought. Then we don't bypass it. What? He pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, looked around, found what he was looking for. A vent cover, high on the wall. He dragged over a chair, climbed up, unscrewed the cover. The vent shaft was narrow, but passable. He looked back at Sarah. I'll go through. You stay here. If anyone comes, text me. She nodded. Be careful. He pulled himself into the shaft. It was tight, dark, the metal cold against his hands. He crawled forward, following the airflow. After 20 feet, he found another vent, this one looking down into the vault. He carefully removed the cover, lowered himself down. The drop was 8 feet. He hung from the edge, let go, landed in a crouch. The vault was small, walls lined with safety deposit boxes. He found 447, inserted the key. It turned. He pulled out the box, opened it. Inside, a portable hard drive, a stack of photographs, and a USB drive. He grabbed everything, closed the box, Then he heard it. Footsteps outside the vault. He froze. A voice. Male. Calm. I know you're in there. Sheriff Graves. Ethan's mind raced. He looked up. The vent was too high. No way to reach it without making noise. He was trapped. Graves spoke again. Come out, or I come in. And trust me, you don't want that. Ethan stayed silent. I've got your friend outside, Miss Mitchell. Pretty thing. Be a shame if something happened to her. Ethan's blood went cold. He moved to the vault door, put his hand against the cold metal. Let her go, Graves laughed. Not how this works. What do you want? What you took from the safety deposit box. Ethan looked down at the hard drive in his hand. This is evidence. Proof of what you've been doing. Proof means nothing without someone alive to present it. Graves was right. Ethan knew it. He thought of Maya, of the promise he made to Rachel. Monday. If you're not here Monday morning, don't bother coming to it all. He thought of Marcus, of the message scratched into the basement wall. Protect the dogs. He made a decision. All right, I'm coming out. Smart choice. Ethan tucked the USB drive into his boot, left the hard drive and photos in the box. Closed it, then he called out, opening the door. He reached for the vault handle from the inside. There was an emergency release. He pulled it. The door swung open. Graves stood there, flanked by two deputies, both armed. Behind them, Sarah, hands zip-tied, a bruise forming on her cheek. Ethan stepped out, hands visible. Graves smiled. Mr. Cross, we meet at last. He was older than Ethan expected, late 50s, gray hair, weathered face, but his eyes were sharp, cold. Where is it? Ethan gestured back toward the vault. In the box. Graves nodded to one of the deputies. Check. The deputy went inside, came back with the hard drive and photos. Graves examined them, nodded. Good. He looked at Ethan. Now, let's go somewhere quiet and talk about what happens next. They were taken to the mill, same place they'd been that morning, different circumstances. The deputies pushed them into the basement. Hands still tied, Graves descended the stairs slowly, like a man with all the time in the world. He looked around. You know, Marcus Vale sat right where you're sitting now. 2 years ago, had the same stubborn look on his face. Ethan's voice was hard. What did you do to him? Graves shrugged. What I had to. He was going to ruin everything. Years of work. Gone. Because one Boy Scout couldn't mind his own business. This is weapons trafficking. Federal crime. Graves smiled. Federal crime requires federal prosecution. Hard to prosecute when the evidence disappears, and the witnesses don't talk. He stepped closer. Marcus thought the FBI would save him, thought Agent Carson would ride in like the cavalry. Pause. Carson works for me. Sarah's voice was shaking. You're lying. Graves pulled out his phone, showed them a text conversation. Names redacted, but the content clear. Disposal complete. Subject will not be found. He pocketed the phone. Marcus Vale is at the bottom of Lake Harrison, weighted down, 200 feet deep. Ethan lunged forward. The deputies grabbed him, slammed him back against the wall. Graves didn't flinch. Easy. You'll join him soon enough. He turned to Sarah. Your father, too. He just couldn't leave well enough alone. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. You killed him. Car accident. Very tragic. Graves looked between them. Here's what's going to happen. You two are going to have an accident as well. Terrible thing. Vehicle goes off the road, hits a tree, bursts into flames. By the time anyone finds you, there won't be much left to investigate. He started toward the stairs. Burn it all. Make sure there's nothing left. The deputies moved toward them. Then they heard it. A sound from upstairs. Barking. Multiple dogs. The deputies stopped, looked at each other. Graves frowned. What the hell? More barking. Closer now. Then a crash. Breaking glass. Shouting from upstairs. Footsteps. Fast. Getting closer. The basement door flew open, And down the stairs came something Ethan had stopped believing in: hope. They were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped in a basement with a corrupt sheriff who had already killed once and wouldn't hesitate to kill again. But Ethan Cross was a Navy SEAL, and he had just remembered something his mentor taught him 15 years ago. Never underestimate a K-9's loyalty. The basement exploded into motion. 7 dogs poured through the doorway. 6 young German shepherds moving with coordinated precision, and leading them an older female, scarred, battle-hardened, moving like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Stella, Marcus's K-9. The puppy Ethan had named Atlas hit the first deputy. Not wild, not reckless. Targeted. He went for the back of the man's knee, teeth finding the soft tissue behind the joint. The deputy went down hard, his weapon clattering across concrete. The other 5 puppies moved like a trained unit, flanking, distracting, creating chaos. But Stella commanded the space. She was older, slower, one ear torn from some long-ago fight. Scars across her ribs where bullets had found her 2 years ago. But she moved with absolute precision, military precision. She went straight for Graves. He reached for his sidearm, got it halfway out. Stella's jaws closed around his wrist. Not crushing, just holding. Controlled aggression. Exactly the way Marcus had trained her. Graves screamed. The second deputy turned, raised his weapon toward the dog. Ethan moved, hands still zip-tied behind his back. Didn't matter. He'd been trained to fight in worse conditions. He drove his shoulder into the deputy's midsection. Both of them crashed into the filing cabinet. The gun went off. The shot wild, concrete dust exploding from the wall 6 inches from Sarah's head. Ethan rolled, brought his knee up, connected with the deputy's jaw. The man's head snapped back. He went limp. Ethan struggled to his feet, looked around. Sarah was pressed against the wall, still tied, but alive. Atlas stood on the first deputy's chest, teeth bared. The man wasn't moving, smart enough to know better. The other puppies had formed a perimeter, watching the stairs, the door, the windows, like they'd been trained for exactly this. And Stella still had Graves. He was on his knees now, face twisted in pain and rage and disbelief. "Let go, you filthy animal." Stella didn't let go. Ethan walked over, grabbed the deputy's dropped weapon from the floor, checked the chamber, still loaded. He pointed it at Graves. "Stella, release." The dog looked at him, her eyes intelligent, assessing this stranger who spoke with authority. Then she opened her jaws, stepped back. Graves clutched his wrist, blood seeping between his fingers where her teeth had broken skin. Ethan's voice was cold. "Don't move." He went to Sarah, used the deputy's knife to cut her restraints. She stood, rubbing her wrists. "You okay?" She nodded. Behind them, Graves was staring at Stella, recognition dawning. "That's Marcus's dog." Ethan kept the weapon trained on him. "Yeah, I shot her 2 years ago, put 3 rounds in her. She's tougher than you thought." Graves's face was white. "This isn't over. You have no proof, no evidence. It's your word against mine." Sarah pulled out her phone. Wrong. She held it up. Screen showing a recording in progress. "I've been recording since we left the bank. Everything you said. Every confession." Graves's expression shifted. Fear replacing arrogance. And Sarah continued, "I already sent it to 3 different people, including the FBI field office in Helena. The real one. Not your guy, Carson." She smiled, no warmth in it. "They're on their way." Graves lunged, not at them, at the stairs. Ethan fired. The shot hit concrete inches from Graves's feet. He froze. Next one doesn't miss. Graves turned, his face contorted with rage. "You think this matters? You think anything changes? I own this county. I own the courts, the judges, the prosecutors. Maybe." Ethan's voice stayed level. "But you don't own the truth, and you don't own what happens next." They waited. Ethan kept the weapon steady. Sarah watched the deputies. The dogs maintained their positions. Stella sat near Ethan, her breathing labored. He noticed for the first time the extent of her injuries. Old scars across her ribs, the way she favored her left side. Fresh blood on her shoulder where an old wound had reopened. She'd been living in the wilderness for 2 years, surviving, raising her puppies alone, protecting what Marcus had left behind. After 15 minutes, they heard sirens, multiple vehicles, coming fast. Graves's face went slack. Footsteps thundered overhead, voices calling out, FBI, anyone in the building, identify yourself. Sarah called up the stairs. Sarah Mitchell, conservation officer. We're in the basement. We have Sheriff Graves in custody. A pause. Are you armed? One weapon, secured. Come up slowly, hands visible. Ethan looked at Sarah. Take the gun. I'll bring them. She took the weapon, headed up the stairs. Ethan turned to Graves. Get up. Graves didn't move. Ethan's voice hardened. I said, get up. Slowly, Graves rose, his wrists still bleeding, his face a mask of hate. You're dead. You understand that. You and everyone you care about. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. You threatened my daughter. That was your mistake. He gestured toward the stairs. Move. They ascended, Stella and the puppies following close. At the top, 4 FBI agents, weapons drawn, vests marked clearly. Sarah stood off to the side, hands raised, the deputy's gun on the floor in front of her. The lead agent was a woman, 40s, short dark hair, sharp eyes. Her badge read Agent Torres, Sheriff Graves. Her voice was flat. You're under arrest for weapons trafficking, murder, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. She nodded to the other agents. Cuff him. 2 agents moved forward. Graves resisted for a moment, then sagged. They put him in restraints, read him his rights. Torres turned to Ethan. You're Ethan Cross. Yes, ma'am. And you were Marcus Vale's friend. I was. Torres' expression softened slightly. I'm sorry for your loss. Marcus was a good man. He contacted our office 2 years ago. We were putting together a case. But before we could move, he disappeared. She paused. His handler, Agent Carson, he wasn't one of ours. Graves had someone pose as FBI to intercept Marcus's report. Ethan absorbed this. So Marcus died for nothing. Torres shook her head. Marcus died trying to do the right thing. That's not nothing. She looked at Sarah. And because of what you two did tonight, we have everything we need. Graves's confession, the location of the weapons cache, testimony from his deputies. One of the deputies on the floor had started talking, offering to cooperate in exchange for a deal. Torres continued. This goes deeper than just Graves. We're looking at a network, multiple counties, maybe multiple states. This is going to take down a lot of bad people. Sarah's voice was quiet. My father, John Mitchell. He was a deputy 15 years ago, died in a car accident. Torres met her eyes. We'll look into it, I promise. Sarah nodded. Torres turned her attention to the dogs. And these are Marcus's canine and her puppies. She studied Stella. The scars, the fresh blood, the way she stood protectively near Ethan despite obvious pain. She's been living wild for 2 years, protecting her litter. Torres was quiet for a moment. We'll need to bring them in, get them checked out, medical care. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. What happens to them after that? Standard protocol. They go to animal services, get evaluated, then put up for adoption. Ethan looked down at Atlas, the puppy who had started all of this, who had brought him gifts, who had led him to the truth. I want him. He pointed to Atlas. That one. I want to adopt him. Torres considered. You'd have to go through the process, application, home visit, background check. I'm former military, Navy SEAL, honorably discharged. I know how to handle K9S. Torres glanced at Sarah, then back at Ethan. I'll see what I can do, one of the other agents called out. Ma'am, we found the filing cabinet. Second drawer. Combination worked. There's documentation here, shipping manifests, financial records. This is everything. Torres allowed herself a small smile. Bag it all. This is going into evidence. She looked at Ethan and Sarah. You two need to come to the field office. Give formal statements. This is going to be a long night. They rode in separate vehicles, Ethan with Agent Torres, Sarah with another agent. The dogs transported in a specialized animal control van. At the field office, they were separated, taken to different rooms. Ethan spent 3 hours going through everything. From the moment Atlas first appeared on his porch to the confrontation in the basement, Torres recorded it all, asked clarifying questions, took notes. When they finally finished, it was nearly 4 in the morning. Torres sat back. Thank you. This is incredibly helpful. Ethan was exhausted, but there was one more thing. Marcus, his body. You said Graves claimed he was in Lake Harrison, Torres nodded. We'll send divers. It may take time, but we'll bring him home. Ethan's throat was tight. He deserves a proper burial. Military honors. He'll get them. I'll make sure of it. There was a knock on the door. Another agent poked his head in. Ma'am, we've got a problem. What? The female dog. Stella. She's in bad shape. The vet says she needs surgery. Old bullet wounds. Internal damage. She's been compensating for years, but she's shutting down. Torres looked at Ethan. He stood. Where is she? They took him to a veterinary clinic 2 blocks away. The FBI had called in a specialist. In the exam room, Stella lay on a metal table, her breathing shallow, eyes half closed. The vet, a man in his 60s, white coat, kind face, he looked up when Ethan entered. You're the one who brought her in, yes. She's remarkable. I've never seen a dog survive what she's been through. 3 gunshot wounds, 2 healed on their own. One is still lodged near her spine. She's been living with that for 2 years. Can you help her? The vet hesitated. Surgery is risky. She's older, malnourished, weak. I'd say 50-50 chance she makes it through. And if you don't operate, she has maybe 12 hours. Ethan moved closer to the table, put his hand on Stella's head. She opened her eyes, looked at him. In that look, he saw Marcus, saw Ranger, saw every K9 who had ever given everything for their handler. Do the surgery. The vet nodded. It'll take several hours. You should get some rest. I'll wait. He sat in the waiting room, alone, the clock on the wall ticking. Sarah found him there an hour later. She sat down beside him. Torres told me about Stella. They didn't speak for a while. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. What you did tonight, that took guts. Ethan shook his head. I didn't do anything. The dogs did. You came here looking for answers. You could have walked away. He looked at her. Could you? She smiled slightly. No, then we're the same. They sat in silence until the sun came up. At 7:30, the vet emerged, still in a surgical gown, tired but smiling. She made it. Ethan stood. The surgery went well. Removed the bullet, repaired the damage. She's stable, strong vitals. When can I see her? Give her a few hours. Let the anesthesia wear off. Thank you. The vet nodded. She's a fighter, just like her handler must have been. 3 months later, winter had settled over Montana, snow covering the ground, the air crisp and clean. Ethan stood in front of a headstone, fresh, black granite. The inscription read simple and clear, Lieutenant Marcus Vale, U.S. Army K-9 handler, a good man, a true friend. Beside him, Maya, 8 years old, bright eyes, her hand in his. She was holding a small American flag, the kind given out on Veterans Day. She stepped forward, placed it carefully at the base of the stone. Daddy, did he really save all those people? Ethan's voice was gentle. He did. He found out bad men were doing bad things, and he tried to stop them. Was he brave? The bravest. Maya thought about this. Like you. Ethan crouched down, met her eyes. I'm not brave, honey. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That's what brave means. He pulled her into a hug, behind them. Sarah stood at a respectful distance. She'd been promoted to lead investigator for the State Wildlife Division. Her father's case had been reopened. Evidence of tampering found. His name cleared. She caught Ethan's eye, gave a small nod. Beside her, Atlas, bigger now, still young but no longer the thin puppy from months ago. His coat thick and healthy, eyes bright, he wore a Vestmark therapy dog. And next to Atlas, Stella. She'd made a full recovery, slower now, more gray around her muzzle, but alive, alert, still protective. The other 6 puppies had been adopted, each one going to a veteran's family, each one carrying on Marcus's legacy. Ethan stood, took Maya's hand. They walked back toward the parking lot. Rachel was waiting by her car. She and Ethan had worked out a new arrangement. Maya spent every other weekend with him. Holidays alternating. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Rachel gave him a small smile. See you in 2 weeks. Yeah. Maya hugged him tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. He watched them drive away, then turned back to Sarah. You ready? She nodded. They walked to Ethan's truck. Atlas and Stella jumped into the back seat. The drive back to the cabin took 30 minutes. It looked different now. Ethan had fixed the porch, replaced the broken windows, built a proper dog run in the yard, inside. The kitchen table still held the objects Atlas had brought months ago, but now they were arranged, mounted in a shadow box frame, a reminder of where everything started. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Maya wants to come for Thanksgiving. 3 days. That okay? He typed back, more than okay. 3 dots appeared. Then, thank you, Ethan, for showing up. He stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone down. Sarah was making coffee. Good news. Maya's coming for Thanksgiving. That's great. Yeah, it is. He looked out the window. Snow falling gently. The forest quiet and still. Atlas came over, sat at his feet, looking up with those intelligent eyes. Ethan reached down, scratched behind his ears. Good boy. That night he sat on the porch, coffee in hand, Atlas beside him, Stella resting near the door. The stars were sharp overhead, the cold biting but not unbearable. He thought about Marcus, about the message in the basement. Protect the dogs. He'd done that, in his own way, but the dogs had protected him too, had given him purpose, had brought him back to himself. Sarah stepped out, handed him a blanket. You'll freeze out here, I'm good. She sat down anyway, wrapped the blanket around both of them. They didn't talk. Didn't need to. After a while, she spoke. Torres called. Graves was sentenced today. 40 years federal prison. No parole. Good. 6 others went down with him, including Carson, the fake FBI agent. Justice, Sarah was quiet. Then, my father would have liked you. Yeah, he would have said you're stubborn and reckless and way too willing to put yourself in danger. She smiled, but he would have respected what you did. Ethan looked at her. I couldn't have done it without you. We make a good team. Yeah, we do. They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them. Eventually Sarah stood. I should go. Early day tomorrow. Stay. She looked at him. There's a guest room, and it's late. Roads are icy. She considered, then nodded. Okay. Inside. He showed her the guest room, small but clean. She thanked him. Before she closed the door, she spoke. Ethan. Yeah, I'm glad you stayed. Glad you didn't walk away. Me too. He went to his own room, lay down. Atlas curled up on the floor beside the bed. Stella in the hallway, standing guard even now, for the first time in 2 years. Ethan slept through the night. No nightmares, no waking in cold sweats, just sleep. The next morning he woke to the smell of coffee. Sarah was in the kitchen. She'd found eggs, made breakfast. Morning. They ate together, comfortable, easy. Afterward, they took the dogs for a walk, the snow crunching under their boots, their breath visible in the cold air. Atlas ran ahead, playing, acting his age for once. Stella stayed closer, still protective, still watching. Sarah spoke. "What's next for you?" Ethan thought. "I don't know. I've got some time with Maya coming up. After that, we'll see. You could stay here. Make it permanent. Maybe. You could also help me. I've got funding for a new program, working with veterans and rescue dogs, pairing them up. Therapy. Purpose." She looked at him. "I could use someone with your experience." He met her eyes. "I'll think about it." "Good." They walked in silence, the forest beautiful in winter, peaceful. Atlas ran back, dropped something at Ethan's feet. A stick. Just a stick. But Ethan picked it up anyway, looked at the dog, and smiled. Some gifts aren't meant to be understood right away. Sometimes you just have to trust they were brought to you for a reason. Marcus had taught him that. The dogs had reminded him. And now, standing here in the Montana wilderness, surrounded by snow and silence and second chances, Ethan Cross finally understood. He wasn't alone, had never been alone. He just needed to be ready to receive what was being offered. A chance to heal, a chance to serve, a chance to be the man his daughter needed, the man his friend believed he could be. He threw the stick. Atlas bounded after it. Sarah laughed. Ethan joined her. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, Marcus Vale was smiling too. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from, leave a comment, let us know what it meant to you. And remember, you're never as alone as you think. Sometimes help comes in forms you don't expect. Sometimes the smallest gift carries the biggest message. May God bless you, bring peace to your day, and remind you you are not forgotten.